Hey guys, it's Ally Mac, and today I'm going to be doing my makeup for my Halloween costume. But I thought it'd be fun while I do my makeup to tell you guys some ghost stories. Some of these are personal stories, some of these are stories that people I'm close with told me. So I thought it'd be just fun to share that with you while I do my Halloween makeup. So let's just get into it. So I'm gonna be doing like a creepy gypsy kind of look, and I thought it'd be kind of fun, but also like kind of pretty. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I do already have my foundation on and some makeup because I just filmed another video, but I figured I can work off of that. I'm not going to be really talking you through what I'm doing, but I will list all the products down below, so just so you know. So since I'm going to be talking about ghost stories, I think it's only fitting that I start with a personal ghost story. This happened when I was a little girl. I don't exactly know how old I was, but I remember I was really young, and it was to the point where I don't really remember too much, but the actual event I remember exactly. So when I was a little girl, I would go to my grandma's house, and my grandma would take care of me until my parents got home. So this specific day, my grandma was in the kitchen making dinner, and I went to the bathroom. And because it was just the two of us in the house, I just left the door open. So the way this bathroom was situated, so here was the door, here was like a little nook, and there was a wall right here, and this is where she had her little vanity. And then this area was like the bathroom, and there was the shower, the toilet, and everything. So I had left the bathroom door open. I was going to the bathroom, and all of a sudden I look over at the door, and there's this man standing there, and he was a tall man, but he had like on this long light brown trench coat and had this like dark brown fedora on, and he had his hands in his pocket, and his feet, you couldn't see his feet were like dissolved, and he is just like standing there with his head down. So I couldn't, all I could see was this part of his face, and I remember his chin was kind of pointed, and so was his nose, so he was more of a slender man. And I remember screaming, just closing my eyes and screaming and screaming and screaming. And the next thing I knew, my grandma was there, and she's like, what's wrong? And I told her what happened, and my grandma, even though it's in her house, she doesn't really believe it. She will admit that there are times where she senses it. So my grandma was kind of trying to, dust it off and just be like, well, you probably maybe you imagined it, or you probably didn't see what you thought you saw. And even to this day, a lot of people don't believe me when I tell them what I saw. But I can vividly picture it so well. But yeah, so that was like my first encounter with anything paranormal. And so my grandma's house has this very eerie feeling to it. But not all spots. Like the only place in her house that I feel 100% safe in is her kitchen, and I think that is because it's closest to the exit. So that's the only room that I feel closest, like safe in. But if I have to go over to her house and no one's there, I try to keep it to being only in the kitchen, mainly because of the next incident that I had. One day I had to go to my grandma's house to grab something, and she wasn't there. And I was going down the long hallway, and at the end of the hallway she had a closet, and that is where I needed to get what I needed to get. And this specific door, so here's the hallway, and the door opened this way. So you're standing right here, you can't see anything down the hallway because the door's blocking it. So I have the door open, I'm going through stuff, getting what I need, and I hear footsteps. It clearly sounded like high heel footsteps, and it was slow. And at first, I kind of shook it off because I'm like, okay, maybe the door moved a certain way, or something moved, like something outside. I heard something, and you know, that's all it was. I didn't, you know. So I kind of just kept on, and I heard it again, but this time it was clearer. And at that point, especially, it was starting to freak me out a little bit. So I hurried up and got my stuff and just bolted out of there. I don't know what I heard. Like I said, it could have totally been just something explained. But in that moment, I remember just feeling immense feeling of, you should not be here. Which, whenever you get that feeling, it's not a pleasant feeling at all. So yeah, so that's why whenever I go to my grandma's, I try to like not be alone. So let me tell you some stories that happened to my mom and my aunt and uncles while living in that house. So this house, my grandpa actually built himself. He bought a lot of land and he just decided to make his own house. One of the most notable stories that I know of that happened to my mom and my aunt is one day it was just the two of them in the house, and they were getting ready for school, and they were in the bathroom doing their hair, and they had some music playing in her bedroom, and all of a sudden they hear whispering, and it was a man and a woman, and they couldn't hear any words, but they heard whispering. And my mom, who was the oldest, she didn't say anything at first because she didn't want to freak out my aunt. And then the whispering got closer and louder, and they heard footsteps. And they were in that bathroom where I saw my ghost. So remember, the bathroom is in another room, and they heard footsteps in that other room. And so my mom looked at my aunt, and they were both like, "Did you hear that?" And they both heard it. So they started panicking. So they snuck out the bathroom window, and as soon as they got out of that bathroom, the music that they had playing in the room went on full blast. So there they are, standing outside the house, half ready for school, in their pajamas, and they were too terrified to go back in the house. So remember, at that time, this was back then before there were cell phones or anything. So my mom quickly ran into the house, which is the kitchen area, which is the area I tell you that I feel most safe in. She ran into the kitchen area, called my uncle, and told him what happened. And he's just like, "Run in, grab your stuff, and get out of there." So they ran in the house, grabbed their stuff, but the music kept going loud, quiet, loud, quiet. And so they ran in the house, grabbed their stuff, and my uncle came, and he went in the house and everything, and there was nobody. So this next one, it makes me a little uneasy. This happened to my mom, and my grandparents were supposedly very strict while my aunt and uncles and my mom were growing up, which is weird because my grandma and grandpa now are so laid back and so chill and let me do whatever I want. But growing up, they were really strict with all the kids, and if they were gonna go out one night, they had a strict curfew, and if they weren't in by that curfew, my grandma would send my grandpa out on the road and go looking for them. So this specific night, my mom was out with friends, and she did get home late, and she was afraid that she was going to be in trouble and everything. So she's walking into the house, and she goes to go to her room, and she sees my grandpa standing at the window, and she kind of says, "I'm sorry I'm late." And he looks back at her, and doesn't say anything, and then just turns back away and looks at out the window. She thought, well, crap, I'm in trouble. And so the next morning, my grandpa's just like, so what time did you get in last night? And she's like, well, you saw me when I got home. You were standing at the window. You were watching me. And he's like, no, I was asleep all night. I didn't wake up. And that one always makes me uncomfortable because that's the same room that I saw my ghost. And I feel like that was the same one. I don't know, it just makes me uncomfortable a little bit, that one. So here in my own house, I have had a lot of experiences growing up. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's my mom, sometimes it was my sister. There was one time where, so my mom would be like during the week getting ready for work. My mom was always the first one up, go start the coffee, and then go jump in the shower. So while she was in the bathroom, when she was in there, she heard like the sound of like a spoon clinging around like a coffee cup, as if something was stirring. So she heard that clinging noise, and she just didn't think much of it. She kind of just figured either my sister woke up or my stepdad woke up and decided to make themselves a cup of coffee. So she didn't think much of it. So she got up and she saw that my stepdad wasn't awake yet. So she's like, okay, well, that's kind of odd. So she figured, okay, my sister was awake. So she goes over to her room, opens the door, and my sister is still asleep. So she's like, okay, well, maybe I didn't really hear what I heard. Whatever. So she went to go get her coffee, and she usually will make her coffee and put a paper towel, her coffee cup, the sugar, and a spoon all ready to go. So when she went to go get coffee, she noticed there was coffee missing, and the spoon was wet, like had obviously been used with coffee. So she was like kind of freaking out a little bit, because she's like, well, what the heck? That would freak me out too. Like at the time I was young, so she didn't think it was me that could have gotten coffee. But so this next story, it's kind of a little weird, just because it was a little bit of a dream, but then it wasn't a dream. Like, let me just tell you the story. So do you remember that episode of Friends where Joey brings his grandma to meet everybody? Well, something about that grandma scared the crap out of me. Like, something, like, even to this day I cannot watch that episode. Something about her freaked me out so much. And that night I had a nightmare about her. I know, that sounds kind of silly. And in my dream, this lady would follow me everywhere. But I knew I had to stay away from her. I just knew I had to stay away. And in my dream, there was one part where I was getting on the bus, and out of all the seats on the bus, she came and sat next to me. As soon as she sat next to me, the bus seat was on fire. Like not on fire, but like internally, like as if you heated up a pan on the stove and it's not on fire, but if you were to touch it, it was scorching hot. That's what happened. Like the seat got really, really hot as soon as she sat down. And then it was like in my dream, it like flashed back to how she died. And in my dream, she went to sleep with a candle going, and the candle fell on the bed and like burned her internally. Not exactly, like, it didn't catch anything on fire. It just burned her internally. And that's how she died. And for whatever reason, she was haunting me. So in my dream, once she sat down and like the chair was on hot fire, like I knew I had to stay away from her. And I remember the whole rest of the dream was me trying to get away from her, until there was a moment where she actually did grab my arm, and it like started to like burn me inside. And it was at that moment that I woke up in real life. And when I woke up, I was like laying on my side, and I felt a scratch down the middle of my back. Like it was like I can even feel it to this day. Like it was so distinct, like a scratch. And you know when you have those nightmares and you wake up in the night, in your middle of the night, and you're like kind of paralyzed? That's how I felt until I felt that scratch. And I remember running out of bed and just running to the bathroom, and I put on the light, and I don't even remember what happened after that. Like it was, I don't know, I don't remember how long I was in the bathroom for. I don't remember when I came back to my room, but I know I woke up. I know it was real. Like I know that scratch was real. I know I felt it. I know I actually woke up. It freaked the crap out of me, like really bad. Like I said, to this day I can't watch that episode of Friends just because it freaked me out so bad. Alright, so I'm gonna go fix my brows, put some mascara on and lashes, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I did my brows, I put some lashes on. These lashes are a bit heavy for me. I will admit, I'm not used to wearing lashes. This one's still drying, so while we're doing that, I was gonna do my lipstick. And I was gonna tell you the final story that I have. So this was a good like 10 years ago. It was me, my aunt, my younger cousin, which is my aunt's son, and my niece. At the time, I think I was a senior in high school. My niece probably was about 2, 3. So my aunt was in the living room watching TV. My cousin was in my sister's room playing video games. And I was in my room. I think I went to grab my phone or something. So my niece was in the living room with my aunt, and then she went to the kitchen to throw something away. And all of a sudden, she comes crying to me, like hysterically crying to me, saying, "I saw a monster. I saw a monster." And I was like, "Okay, well, what's going on?" And my aunt comes over and she's like, "Yeah, she came over to me and was like, I saw a monster," like really casual, like really calm. And my aunt was like, "Oh, okay," thinking she was kind of joking or whatever. And because my aunt didn't really take her seriously, that's when my niece came to me and started crying, was just like, "I saw a monster." So I was like, "Okay, well, what happened?" So she takes me to the kitchen with her, and she said he was right there at the window. And it was one of those windows where it's above the kitchen sink. So keep in mind, she's a little 2-year-old, and my niece, as it is very petite. She's very small for her age. So she claims that as she was passing by the window, he was standing there telling her to go outside with her. So at first we were concerned that there was somebody outside, and so we kind of like looked out all the windows and didn't see anything, but we thought it was weird that there was no dogs barking, because we had a lot of dogs, and usually if like a truck pulled up or they saw someone, they would be barking. So we thought, okay, well, it doesn't look like there's anyone out there. If there was someone at that window, it's kind of making me uncomfortable talking about this, to be honest. If there was someone at that window, they would have had to been standing on something to be able to for her to see it. And she just kept saying, "He told me to go outside with her. He wanted me to go outside." And we asked her, like, "Well, what did you say?" And she kept saying that she said no. So And then he started to get a little mad. And so that's when she came and told my aunt, I saw a monster. And then that's when she came and told me. And it was just really out of character for her. So it obviously made us a little uncomfortable. So the next day she was coming out of my mom and stepdad's room, and she was like, come here, that's the man I saw. And she points to a picture of my stepdad's dad, who had recently passed away a few months earlier. So obviously that made me a little uneasy that she could pinpoint who he was. And I don't think she ever actually met him, because before he died, he was very sick, and I don't think she ever met him. If she did, it was briefly. But the fact that she pointed out my stepdad's dad as being the one that she saw freaked me the frick out. But anyways, so that's the last ghost story that I have for you today. I'm gonna go finish up my costume, and I'll be right back to show you the finished look.